So a while back, I recorded a commentary called Narrative Games Are Shit, in which I pretty much vented about my frustration with the current crappy episodes coming out from a whole slew of Telltale games, and just generally my frustration with the fact that I consider Telltale to be getting worse. I sat down with a friend of mine right after I recorded that commentary, and we talked about it, because he's not a fan of Telltale. And I think that what you guys fail to understand in this, or at least those of you that didn't like what I had to say, I'm a fan of these games. I like these games, and there are people that definitely do not. I decided right after I finished episode 4 of Tales from the Borderlands, which I'm going to do a video on, I believe, and I'm going to call it Tales from the Brink, because really this series was like a very shiny tractor trailer that's new and beautiful, driving down the thruway at 90 miles an hour, and you're just watching in slow motion about to jackknife into a fucking landfill. And thankfully, it has righted itself to some degree. And I'm actually going to get more into it at another point when I do a commentary on that. But you guys have to understand that there are legitimate critics out there of Telltale that do not like their games. And that I'm not one of them. It's just a matter of being frustrated with what's being put out. So the person that I'm speaking with is a good friend of mine named Matchface. And like I said, he is not a fan of Telltale.
My main problem with Life is Strange, which is maybe a problem that I have with quite a few episodic games, is that Life is Strange was probably the most basic, the first episode at least, was probably the most basic, poorly written, coming-of-age high school girl story that I've seen 1,000 times. It's like somebody just put the movie Mean Girls and the entire series of Degrassi into a blender, and then they just glued a sheet of paper and started throwing the pieces of these books at the paper and said, this is a game. This is what we're going to put out there. Some of the lines, there's a point in the game where Chloe, the blue-haired girl, steals a gun from her stepfather, and her friend is at the house, and Chloe shows her this gun, and Max is like, I thought you didn't like guns. And Chloe says something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, I only don't like guns when men have them. So
don't forget the fucking dialogue, right? Totes. Just like
totes, hella a lot in there.
Oh god. The whole thing with Life is Strange is that this isn't an American developer. These are French fucking developers writing lines for American kids.
Yeah, and as far as I know, they hired this writer on, and this was his very first kind of real work, right? They just hired this guy on, and they were like, we need you to make a game about American kids in American situations. He just kind of Googled American kids in American situations and was like, this is my game. This is my script.
I will defend the game and say that there are moments of it in terms of the writing that do peak. I make the defense that every episode gets. Would you say that? Have you played more than the first episode?
I've played all 3 episodes.
Okay, perfect. Would you say that each episode is better than the previous?
I'd say it hits a plateau. Like it raises a little bit. It's like not really a plateau, but imagine like a walkway with one step in it, and then that step just kind of extends forward into an entire walkway. And that's kind of like, 2 and 3. You had the amazing scene where they're shooting the gun in the
junkyard.
Yeah, and he shoots the bumper of a car, and the bullet ricochets and hits Chloe in the stomach, and she says, "Stupid gun," and she rewinds time to save her friend, and then immediately after that, her friend gets stuck to a train track and almost gets run over, and she has to rewind time to save her friend again. And it's just, it's amazing points in the game like that I really just find completely unappealing and bring the whole thing down. The dialogue and the dialect mainly is just not something I've ever heard before. It's like an alien language to me, and it's not like, oh man, this is what the kids are talking like. It's like, this is what a kid that I made up, this is what me, a 40-year-old man who made up a kid, this is what they talk like in my universe, which is which is teen drama the universe, basically. That game in particular, the first episode is extremely poorly written. The second episode is a little better, not much, and it has peaks and valleys, and the valleys are low and they're long.
Jump on to say that it's one of the serious problems that I have, regardless of which game we're talking about here. I think that every single game that I've mentioned, whether it is Beyond Two Souls, whether it's Heavy Rain, whether it's any narrative game that I've mentioned particularly, I'm sure it'll be an issue even with that horror game, Until Dawn, that's going to be releasing, that's the same kind of narrative-based game that I'm going to buy. I think that the serious issue with each and every one of these games is the fact that they are so poorly paced. There are serious instances where everything that's happening, the limited action that happens in these narrative-based games comes to a grinding halt where everyone stops everything that they're doing, and they just start, talking about their fucking feelings. They start doing these moments that the people that made the game probably expect people to have a heartfelt moment in, but it's just not well done. And because it's not well done, it just fails. It breaks everything about the pacing of the game. It's like you stopped for no fucking reason because I'm not immersed in what you're talking about here. You're trying to make me have some emotional appeal to the characters on screen, but it's not working. This dialogue is shit. My point in bringing Match on here is the fact that I have defended these games in the past, but it has reached the point where I no longer want to actively pretend as though this isn't a serious fucking problem within this genre of games. I expect better from a series that just continues to get praise for its story, for its writing, for its dialogue. In the case of any Telltale game, which is all they have, it's the only thing you can fucking praise about these fucking games, is their narrative. I linked it in the previous video. Life is Strange is getting fucking serious awards, BAFTA fucking awards, for the fact that it is a well-written game.
I think Telltale went through kind of a different stage when The Walking Dead was first released. They kind of grew into themselves a little bit when The Walking Dead was released, and it got praise for what it was, right? It was a story game. Your typical game review websites praised them. They said these are new, these are interesting. Because, story-based games weren't really big until The Walking Dead came out. But now it's gotten to a point where, and this might be a little bit of a rant coming on here, but anytime Telltale shits out another one of its hundreds of games every year that it puts out, every media outlet is so quick to jump on Telltale's newest baby and say, oh, we found the new game of the year. We found a new amazing story in a game. It's something so great. They've written such a great story and have such a great world here. But I'm afraid that I have to beg to differ. The only thing that I've seen different that a Telltale game does from, let's say, a game like The Witcher 3, a game with an amazing storytelling aspect, is that the Telltale game doesn't really have any gameplay. Any game company can write a story, right? They can write an amazing story with great characters.
That's my real point here.
That's been proven by The Witcher. But Telltale can write, and see, I'm not a fan of Telltale games, and looking at some of the comments on Lewis's latest video, I have to say that I'd probably be making enemies saying that, because from what I've seen lately from the gaming community, not just the gaming press, but from the gaming community, Telltale has become kind of a sacred cow. You can't criticize Telltale anymore, because suddenly if you criticize Telltale, anything that they do, even if you just say, so I just got done playing the last episode of Game of Thrones from Telltale, and I didn't like it, people will immediately come at you and say, oh, so what's wrong with The Walking Dead? Why don't you like Telltale games? Right? And it's like, listen, Telltale is not immune to criticism. And when people come out and they try to deflect criticism from a company like Telltale, you're free to say that you liked these games. But when someone comes out and they say, okay, so the story for the last Telltale game was not very good. The Telltale games have recently been bad. You can't just say, well,
what about
Telltale
the past?
has released good games in the past, so you're wrong. Telltale's a good company. You can't just come and deflect any criticism aimed toward the company. That's not going to get us anywhere. Telltale, from my friend here, who was a fan, we've gotten into arguments.
I know,
today.
that's the thing. That's the reason I brought you on.
We have gotten into arguments day after day about, because I think Telltale is a shitty company. I think they have a shitty business practice. As far as I'm concerned, I think Telltale is just continuously, they come out with the main episode and then they just give you the rest of the game in DLC bites, continuously give you DLC to buy. You know, you can defend them. The Walking Dead was good, whatever, that's fine. But from someone who is a fan that I've argued with, Telltale games are getting worse. And if you just let Telltale games sit on the past and sit on their The Walking Dead throne, then they're going to continue to go downhill until they're worthless.
Until they're Bioware.
Until they're yeah, I don't think you can get as low as that anymore.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
They're dropping the bar extremely low. Looking at the comments of your video, it feels like a lot of people were trying to jump on the sword for Telltale here. They are so enamored with whatever, The Walking Dead or The Wolf Among Us, that they think, okay, so they've made something good that I enjoyed, which means anybody who critiques that, who critiques Telltale, is immediately critiquing my position as a gamer. And when you do something like that, you are immediately trying to place your identity into what you think a gamer should be, right? And that's what social justice warriors do. I don't want to get into that too much, but you can't relate all aspects of your identity, especially as someone who plays video games, to companies or certain games you play. If you see criticism that you don't like, don't just say you're wrong, or if I play those games, am I suddenly not a gamer anymore?
Yeah, that was one of the dumb ones.
Most of the comments that I saw on the video, they didn't talk about the latest episode of Game of Thrones from Telltale. They didn't talk about the latest episode of Tales from the Borderlands. You can't just defend these games without thinking about it. You can't just jump to the defense without using your brain. I am okay with you defending these games. That's fine. I don't like them. I think Telltale's a shit company. I think they're anti-consumer. I fucking hate Telltale. But if you want to defend Telltale, that's fine. Just don't say that I'm stupid or that I'm wrong. Tell me why you like Telltale. Tell me why you enjoy these games. And specifically, if I criticize a part of Telltale that is not The Walking Dead or is not The Wolf Among Us, and you like that part of the company, don't immediately default to The Walking Dead and say, well, you can't critique Game of Thrones because The Walking Dead was good. That's basically, that's my rant on Telltale, a shitty anti-consumer company that I don't like, that just sells DLC and no games. They sell you books with pictures. Anyway, you can disagree with me if you want. That's fine. That's just my opinion on it.
Off the train, I leave niggas soft and brain. Niggas still want the fame.